Welcome to Crime Cafe. I'm Kristen Quinn, and today's video is known in the media as the Possessed by Evil trial. I saw this happening this past week and I was extremely interested in it, so I gathered up all the information. And this case is about a 21-year-old who killed his mom and family dog, and he said that it was because he was possessed by evil. He heard voices that were telling him to kill them in order for himself to rest. He said that evil just took over his body and he did what he had to do. Then later on, he said that it was actually self-defense. That's why he killed them. I gathered up all the information, put it all together, and I'm going to let you decide what you believe actually happened. So go grab yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, whatever it is you want to drink. Sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Sean Pickett is a 22-year-old. He was 21 when this event took place, who was living in the town of Avoca in Iowa, Wisconsin, with his 54-year-old mother, Susan, and their pit bull dog, Chico. Sean's parents were separated, and Sean did have a brother at one point, but he passed away just a couple of years ago. It is not confirmed how he passed away. I have read multiple times people saying that it was because he took his own life. I haven't found any proof that that is how he passed away. So people have said that that is how he passed away. So, you know, I don't know. I'm assuming that's how it happened, but I don't want to say 100% for sure that's a fact because I'm not sure. I did find his obituary, and he did pass away a few years ago. Sean and Susan Pickett were living in extreme poverty. The property that they were on was actually thought to be abandoned by neighbors. That was until May 10th, 2021, when police arrived at the home and found Sean outside of his house, hysterical, and they found his mother and dog in one of the bedrooms, stabbed and bludgeoned to death.
Sean? Where's your mom? Where is your mom at?
In the bedroom. They're in the bedroom.
You're both in the bedroom?
Yeah.
Okay. And you just got home? Where were you?
I was down with the first Tuesday. Oh my God, you're both dead. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Don't tell me you got no mic.
Oh my God.
I got an officer on the way, okay, Sean?
Yeah.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah.
Can you go outside and meet with the officer, please?
Whoa.
Sean?
Oh my God.
Sean?
Yes.
I need you to go outside and meet with the officer, okay?
I have to go outside.
You want to have, yeah. Okay, Sean, Sean, I need you to go outside and meet the officer outside,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Go outside of your house and meet the officer out there, okay?
Is he here?
He is there. Can you go out with both of your hands up in the air, Sean?
Yeah.
Okay, go outside and hold both of your hands up in the air, okay?
As you can hear in his 911 call, he's extremely upset, obviously. He was a complete mess. So he calls the police and he tells them that his mom and dog are both dead inside the home on William Street in Avoca. When the police arrived on scene, Sean allegedly said his mother's boyfriend committed the crime, and he stated that he was actually tied up and held hostage while her boyfriend killed her and the family dog. But just a little bit later, Sean said that he actually never said anything like that. So he denies saying that at all. The second explanation that Sean gives is an actual statement made, and it was later on changed, but it was never denied that he made this statement. According to a complaint filed with the Iowa County Circuit Court, Sean Pickett told investigators that he blacked out and thought he was possessed and was hearing evil voices in his head. He allegedly further said, "There were people inside my head saying that once I kill them, then I will go to rest." The complaint alleges that Sean beat his mom with a metal bar and stabbed her, and he allegedly then beat the dog and stabbed him as well. This was when Sean was charged with first-degree intentional homicide and mistreatment of animals. Now, there isn't much about his life online when you go to look him up, but during his trial that just took place on June 5th, we learned a lot about Sean Pickett and his family history. So Sean, his mother Susan, and her boyfriend, Ernest Wheeler, people called him Ernie, and the family pit bull Chico, moved to Avoca in late 2018. They decided to move there once Sean's grandfather died. They were living in his grandfather's house. This is his mother's dad. They were living in his house with him. So when he passed away, they could no longer afford to live there. So they thought that moving to Avoca would be the cheapest thing for them, and it was really their only option. Ernie had been living with Sean and Susan for about a month and a half at this point. Sean had an off feeling about Ernie from the beginning. He didn't like him. He said that he was weird, that he just felt wrong to him. There was something wrong about him, and he thought that he was an SO. I'm not sure if I could say that. That he was a pedophile, and he said that he had been around a few of those in his lifetime, and he knew what they were like and how they acted, and Ernie acted like one. So they fought constantly. They didn't get along, and he swore that Ernie was manipulating his mother to be against Sean. Sean described their new home in Avoca as being very secluded. Now, even though they do mention some neighbors that saw the house and thought that it was abandoned, so obviously they had some neighbors. But they were in the town of Avoca, and they were very secluded. They didn't have a vehicle, and the next town or city was farther away. They would need to drive there. So they didn't get there very often at all. So they were really close-knit and just with each other at all times. So in January of 2021, things came to a head with Sean, his mom Susan, and her boyfriend Ernie. With all the fighting and the tension in the home, Susan and Ernie decided they wanted to move to Iowa. They thought that there would be more job opportunities, that they can get a fresh start, that they could change their life for the better. Now, the big blow up with this plan was that they never, not once, mentioned this to Sean. He was not invited to go with them, and he didn't even know that they were planning to move. Sean woke up one morning in January, and his mom and Ernie were gone. They didn't take everything. They just took a few things and they left. Sean did assume that they were probably going to be back because they didn't take everything. They still had a lot of their belongings at that house. And two, they have done this before. Not that they have up and left Sean before, but he knew that his mom would go try and find a job somewhere or go try to do this, and she would come back. He says that he just knew that plan, whatever plan that they had, was going to fail, and they were going to be back. Sean says that during this time, he was in zero contact with his mom. That she didn't leave a note or anything like that, and he had no contact with her whatsoever. He said that he was lucky that before they had left, he just ordered Chico a big bag of dog food from Chewy.com because he didn't have a ride to go get anything, but he had ordered a big bag, and that usually lasted him a couple months for their dog. He claimed that he had some food in his house that he was able to stretch for about about a month. He would go and get food from a local gas station. The only things that they had in Avoca was a gas station and 2 bars, and he was able to get some food from the gas station, and he just lived off of that. I'm not really sure how he got money to buy this food from the gas station because he didn't work or anything like that. So I don't know if I don't know how he was getting that food. He would eat very little during this time, and he was down to about 120 pounds. It was 3.5 months later when Susan and Ernie ended up coming back to Avoca. This was around the end of March 2021. Now, this was Sean's opportunity to show his mom what he had found in some of Ernie's belongings. See, Ernie had a cabinet that was filled with paperwork and things like that. And one day, Sean says that he was bored and he really doesn't know why. He just had a feeling that he needed to go through this filing cabinet. So he did, and he found papers that proved that Ernie was a registered SO. And it was his daughter who was the victim of that. So immediately Susan told Ernie that he needed to leave and that she never wanted to see him again, and he left. There really didn't seem to be an issue over him leaving, as far as I could tell. At this time, Sean and Susan planned to sell the home that they were in, and they wanted to move to Illinois. They just thought that it would be cheaper there, and so they were trying to find the right realtor to sell their home. They had a plan that they wanted it to put it up on the market and sell it within 4 months' time. So even though Sean and Susan had this plan to sell the house and move together to Illinois, they weren't doing well. Their relationship was not healthy. It wasn't good at all. They were fighting all the time, and Sean still thought that Susan was being manipulated by Ernie into not liking him or fighting with him, even though Ernie was not in the picture anymore. She wasn't talking to Ernie, he wasn't there. He still thought that Ernie manipulated his mom into not liking him and wanting to fight with him all the time. He felt that she resented him for finding those papers, for bringing proof that what he was saying all along was actually correct. So he felt like his mom resented him for taking Ernie away from her. Things got so bad that in late April 2021, Sean thought that it would be better for him to leave the home. So what he did was take a few of his belongings, he took a tent, and he walked about 30 minutes away from his house and found a wooded area, and he made a campsite for himself and Chico there. He was only at his camp for a few days because he woke up one morning extremely cold, and he said that he couldn't feel his feet. So he wanted to go back to the house and talk with his mom and say that this isn't even about them, it's about Ernie and him not liking Ernie and Ernie not liking him, and it has nothing to do with their relationship. So he wanted to make amends and be back in the house. So Sean was able to stay at the house for about a week and a half until things got bad once again. Sean decided that he needed to go back out to his camp, and this time he wasn't going to take Chico because he said that he had to have him on the leash the entire time, and it was just too hard to take care of him when he could hardly take care of himself. So he didn't want to take Chico this time. And I do want to talk about the reasoning he gave for going back out to the camp. Now, during the trial, Sean stated something that I found alarming, that I found that should have been questioned more and elaborated on more, but it wasn't, because it was kind of shocking that he said that and then it was kind of like let go. But it's a pretty big and bold statement for him to make about his mom. So during the trial, Sean stated that him and his mom were fighting again, and that is why he went back out there. But with further questioning, he quickly threw in there that he actually left because he caught his mom sexually abusing his dog. He said that he caught her doing this once before, and this time he had enough. The prosecutor didn't really probe this statement. It was when the prosecutor was questioning him, this is when he stated that. And it didn't really go much further than that. He did ask him, so the reason for leaving was because of the abuse on the dog, but you didn't take the dog with you when you left. And Sean kind of, I don't know if he really didn't understand the question or if he just let it slide over and just said, no, I couldn't take him. I had to have him on the leash the whole time. I couldn't take care of him out there. It was too hard. So that it kind of got dropped then. And I think it was a bigger deal than what they made it. I mean, when he was asked what he would do while he was living out at camp, he would say that he would walk around town for a little while and he would just hang around the campsite. He would go to the house and bring some food with him to last him for a little while and go back and get some more. Now, midnight of May 9th, so this is going into the early mornings of May 10th, when this event took place. The neighbor saw him at midnight outside of his house in the garage, just going through the garage. He claims that he was getting some supplies to take back to camp. So he woke up very early that morning, May 10th, and he took a walk into town, and he said that he sat at the church for a very long time. He decided to go back to his mom's house because he was hungry. It was around noon that he got there. When he went in, his mom was nowhere to be found. He figured that she was in her room because he claims that it's not uncommon for his mom to have a bad night's sleep. She would wake up often and she would actually drink when she woke up. So he said it's not uncommon for her to wake up at 4 a.m, start drinking, and then pass out and repeat that cycle. So he figured that she was just in her room sleeping from not getting enough sleep and drinking. During this time when he was making something for himself to eat, a man, they just called him Mr. Gilbertson. He was around the same age as Sean, and I think they weren't friends, but they might have been acquaintances or something like that, because he did go and knock on the door, and he claims that he asked Sean to hang out with him. He didn't hear a dog barking when he went and knocked on the door, and Sean answered and just stood in the doorway. He didn't want to come out, and when he asked to come inside, Sean said, no, things are really weird with my mom right now. We're fighting a lot. It's just not a good time. And Sean stated that he didn't understand why he was there to begin with, because they weren't friends. He said that they weren't close, and he thought it was very unusual for him to be at his house in the first place, because he just really didn't understand why he was there and why he wanted to hang out with him. So he let Chico out, he fed him, he made sure he had water, he ate food himself, and then he left to go back to his camp in the woods. He hung out there for a few hours, and he came back a few hours later to check on Chico again. So he went back home, he went inside, he started to make himself some macaroni and cheese in those little cups that you just put in the microwave. So he made one, he took that one out, he started to take a couple bites of it while he prepped another one and put that in the microwave. He then, continuing to eat his macaroni and cheese, he made his way down the hallway, where he saw in his room that it looked like it was ransacked, like someone went through his room. The futon that he had was tipped over and like in the middle of the room, and it just looked like someone was going through all of his things. He then heard a noise, what he called commotion. He didn't describe it as any other way. It wasn't a dog barking, it wasn't his mom yelling, it wasn't anything like that. He said he just heard a commotion in the bedroom next to his, and that is his mom's bedroom. So he put the macaroni down and he had opened the door. As soon as he opened the door, he saw his mom over Chico and said that she was stabbing him. He then quickly, all in one single motion, walked fast forward into the room while saying, he either said, hey, or what are you doing? He couldn't remember. He walked fastly through the door, and they did make it a point to point out that the door was shut behind him, if the door was shut behind him or not. I think they were trying to establish how long it took for him to get inside the room. But the door was shut behind him then. And he said in that same time frame, his mom looked up shocked, when she saw him, and she ran at him with the knife in her hand. Two of them started to wrestle, and he was surprised at how strong his mom was, considering that I think she was only 5 foot, and she was only 85 pounds. He says that it was probably hard for him because he himself was malnourished and he was only 120 pounds at the time, but they were wrestling to control over the knife. He said that he did get some control over the knife and he did stab her a couple times. He claims that this was very instinctual and just an automatic thing, that he just stabbed her a couple times. He also said that it didn't affect her whatsoever. And they both kind of fell over the bed, the edge of the bed, and his mom actually fell on the ground. The knife fell on the ground and he was able to kind of catch himself. So he thought that's a good time for him to go get help. So he ran towards the door, and during that time his mom had gotten up with the knife again and ran at him, and that is when he saw on the dresser right next to him, right next to the door, was a lead pipe and a machete. His mom's boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, Ernie, he did like to collect weapons. He had a lot of weapons around and a lot of them were still in their home. So the metal pipe that he grabbed was Ernie's, and he grabbed that and he swung at her. So Sean said that he believed that he hit her somewhere in the head. He then said that was at the time, he said in the trial that he could have hit her in the arm because in pictures he did see that she had a broken arm. So he said he could have hit her there. He's not exactly sure. It was a traumatizing moment. He kept saying the word traumatizing. He said that after he initially hit her, she fell down a little bit, but continued to try to get back up with the knife and to continue coming at him. So he hit her a couple times, and he says that that was just a very instinctual thing. It was a very natural thing for him to do to protect himself. He said he truly believed that if he didn't hit her multiple times, he would be dead. After that, he went and checked on Chico, who was already gone. So he got up, went out of the room, and he called the cops, and that was around 3:37 p.m. The 911 operator told Sean to go outside and wait for the officers to get there. Chief Carey got to the scene first, and he confronted Sean, who was standing outside the house, still on the phone with the 911 operator. Sean believes that Chief Carey had his gun drawn and was pointed at him, but he couldn't remember at all. He said that he put him in handcuffs and then was placed in the cop car. Sat in the cop car for about an hour, hour and a half, while Chief Carey and any other officers that arrived after went in to assess the situation in the home. Sean claims that at the time of the 911 call, he was in shock and he doesn't remember saying anything. When he was on the stand in the trial, he said that when asked why his mom would be stabbing Chico, he said that maybe her and Ernie were in cahoots with each other, that maybe Ernie manipulated her into killing his dog. That it was like a way to get at Sean. I'm going to put a little bit of the trial here next. It will be his explanation on why he didn't say it was self-defense in the first place. So I'm going to leave that.
When Chief Carey arrived on the scene, you didn't tell him that you acted in self-defense?
No, I was in shock. I was traumatized. I've never been in a situation like that before. My brain was trying to comprehend why, how. It just couldn't comprehend.
You had some time to sit in Chief Carey's car. I think you said an hour, hour and a half.
Right.
And he brought you some food and some water.
Yes.
And you calmed down during the course of that time?
No, I was very sad. I was very emotional. I was still in shock and traumatized, and I think I don't really remember a lot of what happened then either. I know at one time that I blacked. I don't really remember a lot then too. I possibly blacked out maybe once or twice then too.
And you didn't say anything to Agent Folkers or Agent Man Savage or Deputy Severson about acting in self-defense, right?
Well, when I went outside, he put me in handcuffs and he put me in the car and he went inside instantly to check on the situation.
You remember that clearly?
Yes, I remember him putting me in the car, yes.
And you never told any of those officers that you were attacked by Susan?
I was in shock. I was traumatized. I was still trying to process the situation. I don't believe so, no.
And you never told any of them that Susan had attacked Chico?
No, I don't even, they didn't even ask me what happened or anything. I was still trying to process the situation. I already, no.
So after a 4-day trial, the jury was given the instructions and sent into deliberation. This was a little bit before noon. It was at 1:40, not even 2 hours later, that they notified the judge that they came to a verdict. Sean Pickett was found guilty of first-degree intentional homicide and mistreatment of animals causing deaths. His sentencing will take place on September 20th of this year, 2022. Now, a couple things. First, yes, that's his real voice. A lot of people are commenting about his voice, and that was the first thing that I noticed because it doesn't really match his stature. A lot of people are saying trauma as a child can change someone's voice, or mental illnesses can change someone's voice, syndromes can change someone's voice. And some people are saying maybe he just has a deep voice. Some people are getting bothered at how much people are focusing on his voice. But I do want to say, yes, that's his. And yes, it is kind of attention grabbing the first time you hear him talk. Another thing, when I was watching the trial, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but the judge actually read the verdict. He got the paper, read the verdict out loud, and then handed it over for it to be spoken onto the record. I've never seen that before. It was very it was strange. It was just very calm and just read that he was guilty on these charges, and it was a little weird.
Yes, sir.
Has the jury reached a verdict, sir?
We have, Your Honor.
Hand the paperwork to the bailiff, please. You may be seated. The verdicts are 2 guilty verdicts, a first-degree intentional homicide and a mistreatment of animals. The clerk will officially read the verdicts into the record.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Sean R. Pickett, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information, dated the 7th day of July, 2022. Second verdict, we, the jury, find the defendant, Sean R. Pickett, guilty of mistreatment of animals as charged in count 2 of the information. Did treating the animal in a cruel manner result in the death of the animal? Yes. Dated the 7th day of July, 2022.
I don't know if you've ever seen that before. That was the first time I've ever seen a judge read a verdict like that. Another thing, there are people, a lot of people actually, who believe Sean's story. They think that his childhood was traumatizing and that he was most likely malnourished and not taken care of for his entire life, and that maybe that is why his brother took his own life, that maybe they were victims of pedophiles and things like that. And a lot of people are saying that they believe Sean, that he does seem like he couldn't understand the questions fully, that maybe his IQ was a little bit lower and he wasn't able to articulate the way that he wanted to, but that they believe his story. And then there are some people that just say he is evil and he killed his mom in cold blood. And that maybe he was actually, when he accused his mom of sexually abusing his dog, that maybe he was projecting and that was actually something that he did. There's a lot of ideas and a lot of opinions on this case that are complete opposites of each other. So, of course, I want to know everything that you think. I'm going to leave the trial links below so you can watch them for yourself. You can watch them in the entirety and tell me how you feel. Do you think that he is telling the truth? Do you think that he is just a cold-blooded murderer? Or do you think that he was mad? Do you think that he was mad at his mom for siding with Ernie when him and Ernie didn't get along at all for years. And some people said maybe Ernie was actually abusing him and his brother at one point. Maybe maybe he was just so angry with his mom that she chose him and chose to go move with him and left him there, even though he's an adult. He's an adult and he can, you know, people are pointing that out, that he's an adult and he could have went and got a job and paid for things himself and took care of himself. Do you think maybe he got so upset with his mom that she chose Ernie over him and left him there, and he made her pay for it? Tell me your thoughts. I want to know all. So that is all for today's video. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. It does help me a lot. And thank you so much for giving me your time.